Welcome to the African American History Read-In of 2022. Past events have taken place at each of our library sites. This year, however, as it was in 2021, this event is brought to you virtually. The history of the Read-In is the brainchild of the Black Caucus of the National Council of Teachers of English. Over the years, the presenters for the Pioneer Library System have revised the program to be more of a listen, learn, and participate opportunity in which to learn of the struggles and contributions of African Americans who have continued to contribute to make this a great nation. The premise of promoting diversity in literature to encourage people to read in order to shed light on African American authors for all ages remain the same. This year marks the 18th year that the Norman Public Library of the Pioneer Library System has hosted this event. Our thanks is extended to the Executive Director of the Pioneer Library System, Lisa Wells, Associate Director and Branch Manager, Caroline Dulworth, Branch Managers, Michael Pearson, Kelsey Williamson, and Information Services Manager, Hillary Kuhn. I also give my special thanks to our videographer, Mr. Drew Hooper. Virtually, community volunteers will be presenting memorable quips, quotes, anecdotes, and short bios of famous African Americans. We invite you to sit back, relax, listen, learn, and enjoy.
Hello, my name is Destiney, and I'm with Bridges of Norman. On racial inequality, former First Lady Michelle Obama said, "It is up to all of us, black, white, everyone, no matter how well-meaning we think we may be, to do the honest, uncomfortable work of rooting it out."
Amanda Gorman, an American poet and activist, said, "While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more tightly tethered. The question's not if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather the unknown together."
Marian Anderson was an American contralto who spoke on the disadvantages of denying privileges of a people and the advantages of helping others. No matter how big a nation is, it is no stronger than its weakest people. And as long as you keep a person down, some part of you has to be down there to hold him down, so you cannot soar as you might otherwise.
Barbara Jordan, an American lawyer, educator, politician, a leader in the civil rights movement, the first African American elected to the Texas State Senate after Reconstruction, and the first Southern African American woman elected to the United States House of Representatives, simply stated, what the people want is simple. They want America as good as its promise.
Marian Anderson was a well-known contralto who performed various genres of music from opera to spiritual throughout the United States and Europe. She was a prominent figure in the struggles for African American artists to overcome racial bias in the United States. Despite her being one of the leading contraltos in the world, the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to allow her to sing in an integrated audience in the Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. After receiving word of this slight, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and President Franklin D. Roosevelt invited Marian Anderson to perform an open-air concert on the Lincoln Memorial steps, where she sang before an integrated crowd of more than 75,000 people and a radio audience that reached millions. In 1955, Marian Anderson became the first African American singer to perform at the Metropolitan Opera. She was a delegate to the United Nations Human Rights Committee as a Goodwill Ambassador for the United States Department of State and gave concerts all over the world. She participated in the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s and received many awards and honors. She was awarded the first Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1963, the Congressional Gold Medal in 1977, the Kennedy Center Honors in 1978, the National Medal of Arts in 1986, and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1991.
I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I am a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Amanda Gorman, Change Sings.
We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Maya Angelou.
Never underestimate the power of dreams and the influence of the human spirit. We're all the same in this notion. The potential for greatness lives within each of us. Wilma Rudolph, American athlete and sprinter.
Sadie Tanner Moselle Alexander was the first Black person in the nation to earn a PhD in economics. She later earned her law degree and became the first Black woman to pass the Pennsylvania bar and practice in that state. All of this was accomplished while often facing acts of prejudice. As a first-year undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania, she was told she could not check out library books. A dean at the university law school even lobbied against her being selected to join the university's law review. In spite of those outright prejudices and obstacles, she was named the Urban League's Woman of the Year in 1948. President Harry Truman named her to his Committee on Civil Rights, and some 30 years later, President Jimmy Carter appointed her to the chair of the White House Conference on Aging. By her death at 91, she was revered as a champion of equal rights for all.
Most people who are hating on you, they're not worried about where you are, they're worried about where you're going. Elijah Cummings. The most common way people give up their power is thinking that they don't have any. Alice Walker. We have to talk about liberating minds as well as liberating society. Angela Davis.
U.S. Representative and legendary civil rights leader John Lewis left us a legacy of getting into good trouble to oppose systematic racism. Representative Lewis was beaten and arrested as a freedom fighter in the early 1960s, and he worked alongside Martin Luther King Jr. at the 1963 March on Washington. He dedicated his life protecting and advancing the rights of Black people in the United States. He spent nearly 4 decades championing the cause of marginalized people. In his last few years of life, he worked to get Voting Rights Advancement Act enacted into law, which would guarantee every American's right to vote. He believed that the vote was precious and almost sacred. And he stated that voting is the most non-violent tool to have in a democracy.
Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. John Lewis, March 1st, 2020. I realize that with African American people, where we've been blocked from being all that God meant us to be, we don't have time to be patient. Elijah Cummings. In recognizing the humanity of our fellow beings, we pay ourselves the highest tribute. Thurgood Marshall.
Daisy Bates was one of the people behind the desegregation of Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. She selected the 9 students of the heroic Little Rock 9. She regularly drove the students to school and worked many hours to ensure that they were protected from violent crowds. Because she was in the forefront of this integration movement, she was often the target for intimidation. With the eventual intervention of President Eisenhower, the students were allowed to enroll and take advantage of proximity, updated textbooks, better facilities, and overall equal opportunities for education in Little Rock, Arkansas. In the 1960s, she moved to Washington, D.C., where she worked for the Democratic National Committee and for anti-poverty projects during President Lyndon Johnson's administration. In 1962, she published her memoirs, The Long Shadow of Little Rock, which won an American Book Award. For her work, the state of Arkansas keeps her work and memory alive by celebrating its annual Daisy Bates Day in February.
Hate is too great a burden to bear. It injures the haters more than it injures the hated. Coretta Scott King, civil rights activist. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. President Barack Obama.
Victor J. Glover Jr. was selected as an astronaut in 2013 while serving as a legislative fellow in the United States Senate. Before becoming a NASA astronaut, he was a commissioner and a test pilot in the U.S. Navy, where he flew 2,000 hours in over 40 aircraft and 24 combat missions. He attributed his love and learning of science to his 5th grade science teacher who inspired him to pursue STEM classes. He served as pilot in second command on the Crew 1 SpaceX Crew Dragon named Resilience, which launched on November 15th of 2020. He settled in for a 6-month stay to become the first Black astronaut to live and work on the ISS for an extended period of time. One of the more than 300 NASA astronauts who had been sent to space at that time, only 14 were African American. Of this establishment, Victor Glover Jr. said, it was bittersweet because I've had some amazing colleagues before me that really could have won it, and there are some amazing folks that will go behind me.
Civil rights activist Vernon Jordan said, "You are where you are because you stand on somebody's shoulders. And wherever you're heading, you cannot get there by yourself. If you stand on the shoulders of others, you will have a reciprocal responsibility to live your life so that others may stand on your shoulders. It's the quid pro quo of life. We exist temporarily through what we take, but we live forever through what we give."
Use your success to help others. I play for me, but I also play and represent something much greater than me. I embrace that. I love that. I want that. Zena Garrison, Althea Gibson, and Venus opened so many doors for me. I am just opening the door for the next person. Serena Williams.
Gordon Parks was one of the greatest photographers of the 20th century, and a humanitarian with commitment for social justice. The world would learn about Black experiences in America through the eyes and lens of Gordon Parks. His interest in photography began at the age of 25 when he saw images of migrant workers taken by the Farm Security Administration. He taught himself how to use a camera that he purchased at a pawn shop. Despite his lack of training, he won the Julius Rosenbald Fellowship for Photography and garnered other recognitions. Gordon Parks' career included working for Standard Oil Company, freelance photographer for Glamour and Ebony magazines, and was the first African-American staff photographer for Life magazine. Besides photography, he was a true modern-day Renaissance man who was a prolific writer of fiction and nonfiction, music composition, filmmaking, and painting. He was also the first African-American to write and direct a major Hollywood studio feature film, The Learning Tree. His other film was a critical box office success, Shaft, which premiered in 1971. In 1989, he produced, directed, and composed a ballad that was dedicated to civil rights leader Martin Luther King, Jr. He was honored with many honorary doctorates and won the National Medal of Arts in 1988. His images and other works are among the collections of major universities and museums.
I saw the camera could be a weapon against poverty, against racism, against all sorts of social wrongs. I knew at this point I had to have a camera. Gordon Parks.
Steep yourself in Black History Month, but don't stop there. I love Duke Ellington and Count Basie, but I also love to listen to Bach and Beethoven. Do not allow yourself to be trapped and snared in limits set by you or by someone else. Gordon Parks.
Anytime you see a turtle on top of a fence post, you know he had some help. This is a quote by Alex Haley.
Rosalind Brewer is an American businesswoman currently serving as the CEO of Walgreens Boots Alliance. Her appointment in 2021 made her one of 2 Black women of CEO status for Fortune 500 companies. As of March 2021, Rosalind Brewer served as a Starbucks CEO before beginning her new position as CEO of Walgreens Boots Alliance. She joined Starbucks in 2017 as the company's first Black person and first woman of COO. Before that post, she spent 5 years as CEO of Sam's Club. Prior to those appointments, she's held various leadership positions at Walmart and Kimberly-Clark, where she began her new career as a scientist. Though those were prestigious accomplishments, Rosalind Brewer still faced challenges. In 2015, at her speech at alma mater, Spelman College, she shared that she still got mistaken in the eyes of others. She said, when you are a Black woman, you get mistaken a lot. You get mistaken as someone who could actually not have that top job. Sometimes you're mistaken for kitchen help. Sometimes people assume you're in the wrong place. And all I can think in the back of my head is, no, you're in the wrong place. USA Today has referenced Ms. Rosalind Brewer as one of the corporate's most prominent women and Black female executives. Forbes and Fortune magazines has dubbed her as a highly powerful woman.
A quote by astronaut Mae Jemison said, "Never be limited by other people's limited imagination."
I used to want the words, "She tried," on my tombstone. Now I want, "She did it." Katherine Dunham, African-American dance and choreographer and social activist.
You must have confidence in your competence, by Elijah Cummings.
I always wanted to be somebody. If I made it, it's half because I was game enough to take a lot of punishment along the way, and half because there were a lot of people who cared enough to help me. Althea Gibson.
Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
The cost of liberty is less than the cost of repression. W.E.B. Du Bois.
First Lady Michelle Obama once said, "History has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope could take on a life of its own." followed by the king of the ring, Muhammad Ali. I hate every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. Jackie Robinson, the Prince Diamond of the field. I am not concerned with your liking or disliking me. All that I ask is that you respect me as a human being.
I try to remind myself that there are a lot of good people, all colors. There are a lot of bad people too, but there's a lot of good people who really care. Elijah Cummings.
How far you go in life depends on your being tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant of the strong. Because someday in your life you will have been all these things. George Washington Carver.
From the beginning of time, as the matter of racial inequality in the United States became a hot topic issue, there were those who risked family, life, limb, and personal liberty to assure that everyone received the rights and privileges as outlined in the Constitution. It is with this understanding that the most well-known pioneers and leaders didn't struggle alone, as there were many who were feverishly working in the background. From the beginning, there were the abolitionists, the Underground Railroad conductors, the Freedom Riders, to the present with televised and vocal civil rights activists. The road to equality is never a fight done alone. The fight for equality is unending and must be diligently pursued by everyone.
I'm so happy to have this opportunity to be with you. I am going to read a poem from Maya Angelou. The name of the poem is Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes spring high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the hurts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.